Hello, Bogdan. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Welcome to SmartCom Technological Conference.
Thank you. Interesting content so far.
How are you doing?
As long as I could understand the things, yeah.
Okay. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Okay, so let's move to the content of today's session. You will present to us. Actually, Trend Micro is specialist in cybersecurity, and in the last period is also a specialist in OT security. So I think you will enlighten this moment with technology you have and gear suitable for this content. And in mogoče samo nekaj besed. Bogdan Igaru je solution architect, torej arhitekt rešitev pri podjetju Trend Micro. Bogdan, the word is yours.
Thank you. I'll try just to explain a couple of things that were already said here, but let's get into some of the details, okay? Can you see my screen? Okay, that would be the one. Thank you. So we are going to talk today about some adaptive cybersecurity for OT. And the agenda is quite short, but the content is a lot. So we'll try to stick a little bit on it with us. So we're talking about the solutions from TX1 Networks. TX1 Networks is a joint venture between two companies, between Trend Micro and Moxa, with more than 30 years of cybersecurity experience from Trend Micro and more than 30 years of ICS experience in Moxa. This joint venture allows us to mix the knowledge from both of the companies and to bring cybersecurity as well into the ICS area. Because of that, there are a couple of products that are mixed between the two companies, and we are going to take a look on all of these. But first of all, there are a couple of challenges that also Peter and Matthias and the other guys before me already talked about them. But let's see some of these that can be addressed with our solution. So first of all is this screen. Probably you saw it, or probably you can take a look on it on Shodan. There are a couple of protocols that from the ICS part that are already listed in Shodan. It is very easy now to perform an attack against these open interfaces or probably vulnerable interfaces. If we take a look on a simple network architecture like OT network architecture, which is a little bit derived from the Purdue reference model, we can see that there are a couple of pains in here. For example, at certain levels. For example, we can see that can be some shadow operation. There can be some devices that we don't know about or we cannot discover it. We don't know what's going on in there. Probably they are new, they were old, so we don't have enough visibility within the infrastructure. And also probably there is some insecure authentication because, for example, there are some devices that send commands to the operating part, to the HMIs and everything, which are not allowed to do that. So we don't have granularity and segregation between all of the things, probably because of the design. And also there are a couple of insecure protocols, or maybe we don't know about some of the protocols from there. Some of them are not encrypted, not secured. So we don't know how to handle this. They need to be going on and working. And there are a couple of probably unpatched systems. Most of the systems that we've met in the ICS area are not up to date, and it is a very good reason to do that. And also they run some unsecure third-party software that might be vulnerable as well. And of course, we know that the patch management inside of the ICS area is not that feasible, and it takes a lot of time to update everything. Because of that, we have a couple of strategies towards the solution or securing some of these devices. So first of all, I will start with a perimeter defense. We need to secure the perimeter to make sure that things are going on properly in there. Then we need to take a look into the protocols and see how these protocols are being handled. We have to know about them in order to provide whitelisting on the network side. And then we move a little bit to the periodical malware inspection, which is a pain actually in ICS because it is not allowed to install several endpoint protection solutions in there. And then we can take a look on the vulnerability management, virtual patching, containment, endpoint, and USB lockdown. I think I think Peter talked earlier about the Purdue reference model. It doesn't make sense to get into details from here, but I just wanted to emphasize the fact that we take a look on the level 0 to 3 from here. So it is pure IT. Initially, we had the story only for the IT part, but now we can also talk from OT. So now we use the knowledge from IT that we have in Trend Micro and the things that we did with Moxa in OT, and we can cover some of the pains from here. I will just list most of them here because it doesn't make sense to go into details. Most of you probably know that all of these are now contemporary with us, and we need to live with them. The only thing that I wanted to mention here, if you take a look on the fourth dot here, the unintentional malicious attacks, these ones grew from 2017 more and more, and they use a lot of IT knowledge, at least on the part of ransomwares. Most of the ransomwares that were sent to the ICS or attacked ICS are related to IT bases, that they are built on a basis on IT, which means that we need somehow the intelligence from the IT part in order to identify them and protect the areas in there. It is not only this case, but there are also support, lifetime systems, unpatched, and so on. The thing is that we believe that the operation should be kept on running, okay? So it doesn't matter if we have an incident or not, we just have to keep the operation running. But how can we do that when we know that there are when we know that the availability is the most important thing and we cannot interfere with that? I'm just going to talk a little bit about the TX1 solutions for OT. I think that earlier Matthias detailed a couple of them, but let's take a look on how we can put them on a map. So if we take a look on these portfolio solutions from TX1 are adaptive. That means that they can fit into the infrastructure without modifying a lot of things in there. And if we start from the network level, for example, we have a couple of reasons why we would need this type of solution. So for example, we have a big flat network or probably is not segmented properly. And a lot of devices within there, maybe either old or kept on a late version, which are vulnerable. For this, we can take a look on protection at the network level. And we have here, of course, this is not an unknown thing, it's the IPS and the firewall, which are devices to be set up inside the network. We'll talk more about them when we get to the chapter of details. And these devices, both IPS and firewall are managed in the OT Defense Console, which is a big console of management and policy and so on. We'll talk about it as well. So coming up from the network side, we have a couple of solutions for the endpoint side that can address the thing that we cannot install things on the typical operating system devices that we have in there, and we cannot bring unsecured data or malicious things inside of the network. So for this, we can have two solutions. It is portable security, which is an install-less USB drive that can scan things inside those workstation, which can be air-gapped, for example, and we need to perform scanning in there. And the SafeLock solution, which is an agent, lightweight agent actually. It can be installed on some workstations, and it can provide lockdown in the certain levels. We'll talk about them in details in a couple of minutes. Let's take a look at this very simple and very light, actually very complex architecture that comes from Purdue reference model. So still we have levels from 0 to 3 in here that we need to take into consideration, and we will build the things from up down. But we know that these levels are somehow can be connected to several external interfaces, such as remote maintenance. It might be either direct or probably on-site or via the DMZ. But nevertheless, there are connections in there, multiple sites, such as SOC and so on. And there is also lateral and longitudinal movement within the levels 1 to 3, and probably in the other side, that sometimes the typical firewalls from IT that are put into the OT environment cannot see because they are set up somewhere in the DMZ, so it's level 4, and they cannot see all the time here. Either they might have sensors, but that's not the case. So what we do, we can put in the edge IPS in front of either some segments or a couple of devices that have similar function, or probably just in front of a specific device itself. and it can protect the device because you cannot install things on that device. Then let's try to protect the device from the outside. So this is like a practical IPS scenario with virtual patching included, network protocol, and a couple of other things. We set up the edge firewall somewhere in the middle that can perform zone marking defense, and also a couple of segmentation between areas. This is a floor definition firewall, segmentation on the floor level. These devices are being managed by the OT defense console, which is set up in the DMZ area between the IT and OT. And okay, if we go up a little bit from here, we will see, just a second. Okay, if we go up a little bit, we will see that we can install on these workstations the agent for the SafeLock and perform lockdown on these systems, but not before we scan them with a portable USB, which is a very versatile solution. And all of this area here within the 0 to 3 levels can be analyzed by the Discovery Inspector, which is our breach detection system with sandbox inside of it. And actually we use it to detect APT and advanced attacks within IT areas, but it also has visibility for the OT because we said that there is a mixture between the type of attacks now, which are impressed from IT. This is advised to be set up in here. And we also can put the tipping point IPS near around the border and as close as possible to the entrance in this control area. And of course, deep security, which is our famous solution for virtual patching in the IT side, which is installed on the data center servers within the IT levels area. So this would be the whole overview on the architectural point of view implementation, but let's take a look on the things that we care about today, which is ICS on the lower levels, and go a little bit into details for them. A couple of details, of course. So we'll have the Edge IPS. The Edge IPS is a next generation industrial IPS. This is how it looks like, or at least the earlier versions look like this. We just use this device now for the POC, but the big one is one of the big ones are like this. It's not that big, it's like 100 millimeters. Small device, very simple. It's just like a sensor. We don't use, we also have big ones, rackable ones, but these ones are like sensors for some segments. And a couple of features that we can do with them. We can perform network visibility. Keep in mind that this device is recommended and it is better to be set up in inline. So because of that, all the traffic goes through it. So we'll provide network visibility on IT protocols if there are any in there, and ports and everything. And also ICS protocols which can be recognized and can be applied. We can use some rules for whitelisting control that we can do on those things. For example, in protocol whitelisting, we can allow a certain workstation to run read-only commands and another one to run admin commands on certain protocols and other station that can have full control. So we can run some granularity on top of this and mix the filters that we can run on the protocols on some policies and so on. We can also provide virtual patching. This is a cybersecurity part from Trend Micro, and of course from Zero Day Initiative, probably you heard about it. If not, please pay a visit to this website and take a look on the advisories for ICS SCADA. It turns out that ICS CERT for a couple of years acknowledges that Zero Day Initiative is probably the most prevalent researcher in vulnerabilities in both ICS and IT, more than the other ones that are on the market. We use this intelligence in most of our solutions that have DPI, but we also keep it in here so we can provide virtual patches for the things that we know about in SCADA. So we have the biggest visibility on vulnerability management also in this area in SCADA. Zero Day Initiative is a bounty system, hunt system. You can find more on their website, but it is affiliated with Trend Micro, and we use it for several other reasons. And of course, the IPS has the TXODI inside, which is an operating system, very fast, very light, and can perform single pass checking and filtering. Let's take a look on how we can implement this IPS. So we can put it inline or offline. Inline, we can set up as an inline protection mode, which is we connect it to the switch on port 1, which is port for management, and the SCADA environment that can be protected behind of it in port 2. And in this case, from the cybersecurity point of view, it will block everything, or in case the action is set up in this way, so we can run it in IPS mode. And it will also log everything and send back to ODC if it is connected to the ODC, or it can run individually there if it cannot be connected to the OT defense console. And also we can run OT protocol whitelisting. Whenever it is in inline protection mode, we can block the things that we can find in there and take actions like this. We can also run it in monitoring mode, which means that we will set up the IPS in IDS mode, so it only detection, it will only detect and log the things, and also it can also detect only on the OT protocols and perform whitelisting, but it will not block or deny anything. There are also a couple of scenarios of offline mode, which means that you can mirror a port or turn traffic or capture the traffic in port 2. But in this case, we cannot perform OT protocol whitelisting, and this is a very good reason to do that because we need to rebuild the packets, and this device is for protection directly, and it makes sense to be set up in this way. Okay, the Edgefire is a next generation industrial firewall, a little bit different from the other ones that are on the market in reasons of robust systems. And it provides, as you can see, a couple of ports, and this is a small dimension. And it provides also as the IPS, network visibility, protocol whitelisting, virtual patching, of course, coming from Zero Day Initiative as well. Network segmentation, which is an important thing, and not firewall. From the implementation point of view, the firewall can be set up it is recommended, of course, to be inline, and it is very easy to be set up like this. And of course, as the firewall, similar to the IPS, it performs blocking and dropping on both cybersecurity and OT protocol filtering. It also has an inline monitoring mode, which means that it can be set up to not block and not deny anything. I will show some screens from the ODC in a couple of minutes, so you can see how it works. The OT defense console is practically, it can be either a virtual machine or a physical one. It is scaled on different type of nodes that can be protected. And I think it is better to take a look on the features of the device. We also have some screenshots in here. I've took the liberty to have the screenshots from the OT defense console because they are similar to the devices, but the devices, I mean, both the IPS and the firewall have web interfaces on their own, but when they are connected to OT defense console, it can be managed from there. So we have here the dashboard with a couple of assets that we have detected in the devices. And so we have the assets in here, the devices, the cybersecurity events, the protocol events, and so on. If we take a look on the visibility part, these are the assets that are being protected behind our firewalls and IPSs in this sample. So we can see the PLCs or type of devices. For example, in here, this one is a Rockwell, and this PLC example, we have the traffic in TX and RX, so we can see the protocols as well that are provided in here. This is the view for the assets, okay? So we have also the node management, which means that we see the devices that we use to protect the things. We can group them, we can perform policy management on them and other things. We also can use some libraries from object and profiles for grouping and set up for policies. The type of objects are, for example, IP object profiles, service object profiles, and protocol filter profiles. So we just simply define them to fit our needs and then put them on a policy enforcement rule. And then they will be sent to the devices that will protect the assets behind of them. This is an example of some advanced settings on a protocol, an OT protocol, I think one of them that can be used in an advanced setting, or as you can see, we have basic settings like read-only, read-write, admin config, and others type, which grouped some of the functions that are on the professional settings below. But we can also work on the functions by our own. So we can modify some unit IDs, we can change some of the values that will be more and close to the things that we do inside of our environment. We can mix protocols. We can also mix ICS protocols with IT protocols as well. This is the part of policy enforcement that we can see that we have intrusion prevention. We can run intrusion prevention directly or just monitoring, and also some protections on the denial of service. This is the cybersecurity screen, but we also have the other screen that we saw earlier with the OT protocols. Pattern updates from Trend Micro. This is the part where we download the part of virtual patching and so on. And we also have some logs and events in here. All the events from all the devices are being gathered in the OT Defense Console. By the way, the OT Defense Console can also send syslog to a SIEM solution, so we can integrate it into a SOC, big SOC that you might have in there. So these events are being sent in here. The OT Defense Console has also advanced filtering to find out the events that are really interesting to us. Okay. We go on to the portable security now. There are many details that we can talk about in the IPS and firewall, but the time is quite short, so we need to just move faster. Okay, the portable security is a nice device that we can use to do the following. It doesn't require any kind of installation, so you simply take the device, update it, and then go to an USB activated port for a certain device asset we have in the infrastructure, and then it will perform automatically the scan. Of course, we need to allow it to do this, both on an USB connection side and also on the running side. So it will automatically run the scanning device in the ground or interactively, and it will perform the type of policy that we configure it to do. It will not install anything on the device, and it can have some actions on things that are in there. And the nice thing of it is that we can put it inside of a system that doesn't have a screen, or it cannot see what's going on in there, and it will run on the LED coloring here. So for example, if we take a look on the right side here, so the blue signal means that the device was scanned and no malware was found, so the system is safe. We can remove it and take it back to the central location and have some information. If we ask the information for example, asset management information or signatures or other things that we wanted to collect, or logs we wanted to collect from that device, it will simply take it out and go away. The green light means that the device was scanned, we found malware, we clean it up, while the red one says that there is some action that we need to perform, so we need to take a look on the screen. So we can take this device and put it in certain systems. It will collect the data from everywhere based on this LED. So it is quite easy to be operated. It doesn't install anything. It simply finds out what's going on. We can run it like only a scanning device if we configure it this way. So it will not interfere with anything on the system. So it will not close or clean or attempt to clean the malware if there is a malware in there. We just simply run it. It will have a good red light, and we take it out and put it to the central location to analyze the data. So if we take a look here for the mode of implementation, there is a standalone or centralized management. We can run it, for example, in air-gapped, like a standalone operation like this. So we have the internet, we have a workstation of an operator, so no administrator, operator, that will download the pattern on any computer. It simply needs a connection to the internet. The USB the portable security will connect to the Trend Micro servers, download the pattern updates and whatever it needs for the signatures for the anti-malware. And then it will be locked and can be used in air-gapped systems in the similar way that we discussed earlier. And it will report back the things to the workstation when it came back there. In centralized management, practically we need to have a management platform in center in there. You can see it is quite similar, but that management program is practically the one that can send the policies or change the policies on the portable security tree. In case we have one or more devices, we can manage the policies in there. We can have a couple of devices that can scan and take no action on the thing, or require an interactive thing from the operator, and some other devices that can take direct action, delete or clean up or quarantine the file, and also perform and take information, so we can scan or take the information like scan logs and asset info out of the system and then report them back to the management program. So the operator in a certain location just comes back to his office, to his computer, which has access to the management program, and it will send back the data to the management program. This is the type of information we can collect on the asset. So this thing can enrich a little bit the information that we already have from the IPS, from the network area, with endpoint information. So we can have better visibility on the device, and also protection, because we can scan all the time we make a change, we can scan the device, but we also can use the portable security for external contractors that come up in the network with their laptops and whatever, and we can scan them because we cannot install things in there. If they are fine, then we can provide them access to the network. These are the systems that can be scanned with the USB. We have Windows and Linux and some legacy systems that you can see in here. For example, Windows XP, Windows 2000, we can still scan these. Okay, the last application that we have in here is the SafeLock ICS Edition. So this one is an application control and lockdown system, which can be run against the systems that are where we cannot install anything like anti-malware, we cannot install application control or typical endpoint protection solutions, because the systems, the target systems that we want to protect with this one are either very old from the hardware point of view, or probably software does not allow installing anything else, or the warranty can be voided if we install something in there. So which can interfere with the software, the typical, I don't know, SCADA, ICS, OT software. But we do this in a simple way, and we take a look. If you take a look on this round later, we go from prevention oriented to integrity oriented by going down through certain lockdowns periods. So we provide operation lockdown, data lockdown, and configuration lockdown. We'll take a look on this, how they work. But from the deployment point of view, this is a nice marketing slide that shows how simple it is to install the things. But to be honest, on the technical side, we do the following thing. We run a pre-scan. We can do it either from the agent, from the agent of SafeLock, and it is a dissolvable agent. So it just simply goes to the endpoint, scans the things in there, and then dissolves the agent and keeps only the application control. So after installation of the things that we want to protect on there, we can run whitelisting. So we say that this computer runs in typical business parameters. We don't need anything else to be set up in there. So let's lock it down. So after the lockdown, anything else that it is not permitted will be locked and denied in certain levels. So let's take a look on this, how it works. So we have operations lockdown. This one protects the typical application control system, but in a lightweight version. It takes like just a couple of megabytes in memory and processes, and it uses hashes. It is the database of hashes, and it will block and lock processes and scan them for integrity. There are a couple of other engines on beneath of this, but the base part of it is lockdown. So we cannot perform, like, for example, we cannot let the ransomware run on the system because it is not in the list of permitted applications. Then we have data lockdown. There are a couple of things on this, and we can remove the unauthoritative. We cannot allow some applications to run in there that can be against, for example, we cannot change folders, or we cannot change the integrity of some files that are very important. So this is data lockdown, and also we have configuration lockdown. For example, we cannot change registry keys. We take a look on the registry keys or on other type of processes that can change. Let's take, for example, the IP address or the DNS address of the system in order to exfiltrate or go around the lockdown, application lockdown. And least but not last is USB device lockdown, which means that we can perform some trusted device identification and allow only the trusted devices, for example, portable security, based on the device identification and some other things. And we can perform maintenance on the system, on the SafeLock system, in conjunction with portable security or standalone using some other device. For example, we need to apply patch to one of the applications, so we can run this part in here. These are the systems that are supported for the SafeLock. So for example, if we have Windows XP, and I believe that there are plenty of them out there, So Windows XP, Windows 2000, we can run this. It is not only for ICS, we also use it for other type of areas, for example, ATMs, POSs, and so on, where we cannot install endpoint protection or the systems are very light. So this is the best solution for this type of operations. Okay. So conclusions. This is a slide that it was very hard for me to translate it from Slovenian because I thought that guys before me already presented it, so I will not go into this too much. But the thing is that we need to keep in mind is that most of these systems that I presented earlier are very easy to be installed from the network point of view. Some of them do not need software installation. The only ones that can interfere with the traffic would be the IPSs, but there are some learning processes that we can go with in order to make sure that we not interfere with the availability. And of course, we use the intelligence from Trend Micro and Moxtal, as we said before. As next steps, I will wait for your questions. I'm sorry for going up very fast in this. Usually it takes me one day to present everything here, but now it was sketched in 20 minutes. So if you have any kind of questions, please feel free to send me the questions or probably to our partners at Marcom, or we can provide you with knowledge or demonstration or proof of concept values, or probably talk about individual needs, because all of the things we talked about earlier on that big architecture can be taken as a full image or partially or integrated with some third parties, or I don't know. We can think about any kind of scenarios. We are very flexible, and our colleagues from TX1 are very fast. They are adaptive, you know. Okay.
Bogdan, thank you for your presentation. Actually, we are slightly behind the schedule, so just one quick question. You presented dedicated firewalls, next generation firewall, and IPS for the OT environment. What would be actually the difference against similar systems we know from the IT technology, IT part of the infrastructure?
You mean like similar firewalls and IPSs from the IT zone, right? Or
like what we are using in IT, because we know what's the point of the firewall and the IPS, and what would be different from functionality and the environment, let's say, integration point of view at the OT firewalls and IPSs.
Okay. Okay, I will go back a little bit here and on this architecture because it is easier to understand this. So if we take a look on here, if we have the IPSs, so the difference is the following: the IPSs or firewalls that are being taken from the IT environment usually stay somewhere outside of the control zone because there are a couple of reasons for that. For example, if you take a look, we also have an IT IPS, which is tipping point, and we set it up here in the DMZ zone at the perimeter because it doesn't make sense to go inside of it. But if we don't go inside with either the IPS or the firewall, which usually stay here, we don't go inside of here, we cannot see lateral longitudinal movement. We cannot go close to the devices and provide virtual patching. Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons that we created these small devices that are set up in here because we cannot install things outside. And also there is another thing that we have visibility or provide visibility inside of the OT environment. We have a support for a lot of protocols that we can recognize on different verticals of industry. And this is the part of the support that we can do. But the best thing we do in here is that being so close to the devices, we can provide protection. So whenever we have visibility from either some of our collaborators, some other companies, you talked earlier, for example, about a couple of them that you're already using there, we can use their visibility, for example, to enrich and provide protection on these systems in here with either the IPS or probably the other endpoint solutions. So our main goal is to see the things and protect them. And we can do this better with the devices that are dedicated from TX1 than the ones from the IT. And this is proven, can be proven in some demo.
Okay, so the next step would be doing some proof of concept to see how those things work in the field.
Yeah, this would be our recommendation.
Yeah. So Bogdan, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you guys for the invitation.
See you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. See you. Thank you.